Just pull up.
Recording is in progress.
Okay, so thank you very much, Andrew. So we are now on our third Drawdown Markham virtual monthly event. Just starting, I will go through the regular presentation. It is the same presentation that I did last month for the counselors. Of course, the wording is different because the election is over. But I do like to start all of these meetings first by acknowledging those who came before us on this land by saying a land acknowledgement. So we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources, and we are committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Wendat, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We'd also like to acknowledge the land we're on is at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty. We thank them and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land with us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. I do also like to say Sawubona, which means I see you, I see myself in you, I see your hopes, your dreams, and your struggles. I see your ancestors as well, because interconnectedness does not end with two people who are greeting each other. It extends to include the ancestors. Because all beings in Mother Nature are interconnected, there is no sense of being separate. I see myself in all beings, and therefore, if I harm other beings or Mother Nature, it translates into harming myself. So now I will share my screen at this time. Oh, I don't have the access to the screen sharing.
No, you do.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Give me 1 second. Slideshow. Okay. Okay, so welcome to a special presentation by Drawdown Markham on this day, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. The special presentation is being made in collaboration with UnityNet International in support of the members of the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development, which is GP4RD, as we call it, part of UnityNet. I wanted to mention that this presentation will be recorded and broadcast globally for all of our UnityNet members to watch and consider as actions that their own local communities can do as well, for which the City of Markham can consider to partner with them through the UnityNet CTP program for building holistic, regenerative, climate-smart communities, both here in Canada and around the world. I will put in some links into the chat as we move forward. Those links will eventually be put into a document that we will share with everybody of this presentation. So let me just the next slide. So this live Zoom call today is the third of our monthly Drawdown Markham Community Climate Hub meetings following the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, which started in 2020. So the presentation today is going to be done by myself again, Lloyd Helferty. I am the co-founder and chair of Drawdown Markham and the co-founder of UnityNet International, which is the group that is building the framework for the global Unity network of networks on social media, together with our friends and colleagues who are members of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors globally. So Drawdown Markham is focusing on our own localization as an example of for others, and hopefully in future as an anchor for the global partnerships through the CTP program for building these holistic, regenerative, climate-smart communities, both here in Canada and around the world. So I am putting my information, contact information, chat as well. So it's also important for us to move forward locally here in the city of Markham, in the Greater Toronto area of Ontario in Canada, here in the Rouge and Don watersheds of Great Lakes Basin and over shore of Lake Ontario. We're just south of the Oak Ridges Moraine, which is an east-west border or protected landscapes and farms. By also working with local Indigenous peoples and communities, the local elected leaders, the business people, and the land stewards, the stewardship organizations like TRCA, NGOs, and CSOs who are protecting our lands and waters and the biodiversity, while also working with citizens to ensure livelihoods so we can protect and enhance and restore our watersheds and the integrity of the biosphere in the region, and for all downstream communities and people in all our relations. We must also consider as our brothers and sisters on this land we call Turtle Island. So again, I'm going to be putting some additional information about some of the Indigenous peoples and about some of the organizations into the chat as well. So that information is available to everybody who is also participating in this call. But again, as I noted, we will put together a document, share it with everybody so that everybody can have access to this additional information, which is not available directly on the slides that I'm showing on the screen, but is still important information to understand where we are and what are the things that have been done here already to try to protect our own watersheds, which is, I think it's fairly extensive, especially through the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, who has done much work in preserving our watershed here. So this event today is being hosted by Drawdown Markham, primarily being done to support the expansion of our Drawdown Markham Community Climate Action Hub, and especially the Youth Task Force. So the Youth Task Force is a forum for taking local action on big issues like climate change and global warming, while engaging youth in both the conversation and the practical implementation of the many solutions that are available to achieve drawdown and the Sustainable Development Goals locally, what are also known as global goals. So again, you will find additional information about all of these various organizations, including, Drawdown Markham. Hold on a second. And as well, the global goals, the Sustainable Development Goals currently, and a related network that we have on the Global Unity Network called the RDG Club, or the Regenerative Development Goals Club, which we would like to have spearheaded by young people. So we do also want to build a local professionals network, which we call the Human Resource Catalog, which will eventually be expanded into a better platform that we call the Interchange for Peace VCN, which will integrate a number of different social media, including LinkedIn and other professional and business networks. But for now, we use LinkedIn as the top social media professionals network that we know of. We also do use another network called Alignable. So our partnership in Drawdown Markham is being done through a partnership with the We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Civil Society Organization, which has a mandate to deliver life value peace education, which is done in the context of Life Learning Gardens, which UnityNet International calls Community Unity Garden Learning Centers. The mission of the We Energize Global Cooperation organization is to transform the human mindset and therefore our relationship from one that is focused on conflict and competition to one that is focused on peace and cooperation. Again, in the chat, you will find additional information both about these organizations as well as the Unity Gardens Network, which is one of the key networks or networks. And so I mentioned our cooperation with UnityNet International as well. This is one of the organizations that I've been creating with other partners here in the GTA, although our partnerships do extend globally, especially in the US, the Caribbean, Asia, and especially in Africa. But it's intended to become a global network with global reach to all countries eventually. So you can see on the screen, UnityNet International is a humanitarian enterprise and global sustainable and regenerative development corporation, supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure, set up as these life learning gardens that we call the Unity Gardens. So we're leveraging our process of localizing the delivery of achievement of global goals, starting with the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're offering services that allow other companies and organizations to partner with us to make money doing what they do best, supporting the achievement of the 17 global goals, those SDGs, until 2030. Of course, after 2030, we don't yet know what the global goals would be, but we anticipate that they might be called the Regenerative Development Goals, or RDGs. And so UnityNet International is in the process of establishing a regenerative development professionals network, both here in Canada and globally, through our network of networks called UnityNet. So again, you can find more information about the organization in the chat. And so one of the most important nodes of our global Unity network is the Indigenous Global Unity Network, or IGUN. The IGU network is a network that is intended to bring together all of the Indigenous communities from around the world to contribute to the achievement of a localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind, which is the future economy that we would like to support by leveraging our network of networks to empower our members to implement local solutions for achieving the global goals now and into the future. So again, you'll find that link in the chat. So you can find out more about the Global Unity Network, or UnityNet, by going to the links on this page. You can see the Global Unity Network has a mandate to showcase global cooperation, currently described as SDG 17, Partnerships for Goals, but where we're focused on the local implementation of these global goals, starting with those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which continue until 2030. So our network and business structure and interventions at the community level are also intended to empower marginalized people and communities worldwide, including here in the city of Markham, here in your region, in the Don and Rouge watersheds of the Greater Toronto area of Southern Ontario, here in Canada, where we can become a model for communities around the world to do similar things. Though the business relationships in the local communities we work in are also helping people to develop and implement local partnerships as a pathway to achieving the global goals that we call this globalization. We have the intention for the members of the localized networks in our local communities to do their local work, implementing the goals in ways that will leave no one behind, especially as we approach the end of these SDG period in 2030 and enter the period of the regenerative development goals from 2030 to 2045, as anticipated may happen, especially as demand for such solutions increases, especially among young people who are concerned about their own future, as issues like global warming and climate change, loss of biodiversity, inflation, housing, food security, all impact their livelihoods, in some cases even their ability to survive these extreme conditions that are starting to appear in communities around the world. Again, you will find information about the primary professionals directory in the chat. Copy paste very quickly. Part of the work we do at UnityNet International is in partnership with community organizations, or CSOs, like Drawdown Markham. We dive into and leverage the local knowledge of the people on the ground at the local level in these communities who know their watersheds, who know their businesses and organizations, who know the community leaders and institutions and use this intimate local knowledge in a way to help build a local network of regenerative development professionals and practitioners who we hope will become members of the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development, which is a regenerative development professionals network tasked with the local implementation of the various practical solutions for helping to achieve these global goals in each one of our local communities, including right here in the city of Markham, York Region, Greater Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in the Great Lakes watershed of northeastern Turtle Island, North America. You'll find additional information again of some of our networks in the chat. I am pasting them here for the people on the call. Again, we will be putting it into a document so everybody will have access to these networks who is a member of UnityNet. So one of the other groups that we're supporting as well through Drawdown Markham is what's called the Regenerative Living, Learning, and Lifestyle Network, a public group and discussion around helping humanity accelerate the transition from the current situation of waging wars and using winner-take-all competition for implementing solutions to our problems. Although also described culturally as homo configliere, we are helping each person and community achieve a state of being where all people realize that we're all human beings, part of nature, and must therefore take care of each other and our mothers, a state of consciousness called homo amore universalis, which is an idea that I believe that young people can embrace as they learn how to restore nature, our communities, and our economy back into balance as part of a holistic partnership with all our relations. Again, you will find additional information about this network in the chat. So another partner I want to mention that we're working with is the Indigenous community, as it's called, created by the Sustainable Development Association in Montreal. Douglas Jack, who is part of this organization, previously opened our eyes to the concept of relocalization and re-indigenization through his programs of building local community enterprise networks, participating partnerships, and empowerment systems at the grassroots level through neighborhoods and multi-home integration, cataloging, and mapping. There are decades of valuable information on his website that is shown on the screen. We hope to use their model to develop our Interchange for Peace Human Resource Catalog. So again, in the chat, I am putting that you can see on the screen. So I should also mention that we're doing this presentation in collaboration with Andrew Networks, which is in California, in Los Angeles. We call Andrew our Yes, Yes, Yes partner, and his network is also our door opening network of the Global Unity Network, also known as UnityNet. So the members of our network are able to discover their inner selves and passions so they can come together with the people of the network, acting like a net to support the dreams of their members of the network. And so we can leverage those passions, help to transform their visions of a better future for themselves and their communities into a reality. But it should be a reality that makes sense for both themselves and their own communities, however they might define that, what that better future is collectively, as they seek to work together in partnership with their communities and leave no one behind in those local communities. So Andrew Networks also hosts our weekly Thursday Zoom calls, the IGU Summit events, which we're committed to do weekly until the end of December 2023. So Andrew Networks also hosts these events now on Tuesdays. They are a brand and a domain name owned by ParXDC Export Trading Company, comprising various social media channels like TRN TV, Universal Citizens Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew William Jr., and many others. So Andrew Networks does donate our UnityNet hosting and promotional support services, and can also rebroadcasting any kind of production-ready episodes that focus on things like sustainable development, regenerative solutions, localization, local self-sufficiency, and related themes. So he does this by broadcasting and recording for posterity all of our events and programs on the AHIABGA.org domain, which gets redirected to his various channels, including UCIT-TV and other sites as well. And so you can see in the chat, there are some links to the IT Summit event, as well as the AHIABGA-TV and UN Global Compact Vision and Strategy, which we are aligning with as well. So one other local organization that we support here in Markham is the South Markham Food Security Network, which was started by a gentleman by the name of Michael Chen, who is also with an organization called Food Tourists South Markham, which was a conversation that started in 2020 in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic as a conversation between Mike and the Youth and Parents Association of Markham. So Michael was attending Teachers College at the time, was interested in gardens and the concept of establishing a local learning hub for youth and local families to use in their local communities. Was inspired by TRCA's SNAP projects, where the residents saved water, grew their own vegetable and fruit trees, and took ownership of their parks. He said it to me at the time, I'd like to see something similar for South Markham. So I introduced Michael to our community sustainability working group of Science for Peace, or COSWOG, which also hosts Drawdown Markham. I told them that we're working in partnership with We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island and their Go Local campaign for community resilience and adaptation, and working in support of the UN's Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, 21 to 2030. So again, information about the Food Security Network here in Markham is also available in the chat, as well as our community sustainability working group, COSWOG, as we call it. So I wanted to mention as well, Drawdown Markham is an essential part of and founding member of the Markham INAB Collaborative, our local interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaborative that's part of UnityNet GTA, and it's intended to empower the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who will be implementing their holistic cooperative community unity garden learning center spaces in all the local communities of the city of Markham here in the North Region and the Greater Toronto area as well. There's a link to the Markham INAB Collaborative in the chat as well. And so, of course, I do want to mention UnityNet GTA brings together all 25 municipalities of the Greater Toronto area to work together and empower the young female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who will be implementing the localized enterprise solutions for achieving the global goals through their community-based enterprises and businesses, and where the intention is to leave no one behind in each one of the 25 local communities of the Greater Toronto area here in Ontario, Canada, on Turtle Island, in the Great Lakes watershed, again, north of Lake Ontario. Again, UnityNet GTA can be seen in chat. Of course, UnityNet GTA is part of UnityNet Ontario, which is a fairly new provincial organization, the first in Canada, which includes UnityNet Gov, Greater Ottawa Valley, a similar network there that we also plan to implement our UnityNet programs of localization and the community interventions that help to create the localized empowerment networks for the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are implementing these open source climate smart infrastructure solutions as community unity garden learning centers. We'll teach all of our young people and families in the local communities how to implement these local regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals through their businesses and as part of local, regional, provincial, national, and also international empowerment networks that we call UnityNet. Again, in the chat, you'll find a link to UnityNet Ontario. I mentioned briefly UnityNet Canada. This network was created because we do intend to establish similar provincial and territorial networks across Canada in the future. Of course, right now we're focused on Ontario. This is where we live, and the best way to work and move forward quickly is to focus on the local, but think globally when considering solutions that will help create a better world for the next generations. Again, you'll find different links as you see on the screen in the chat. So the final partner network that I'd like to mention is UnityNet Turtle Island, which encompasses UnityNet Canada, the US, the Caribbean, Mexico, Central America, and even South America by treaty. It's intended to help bring together people of all cultures across both continents of the Americas, but especially so we can engage in dialogue and possible partnership with the Indigenous peoples of the Americas and also worldwide as we consider partnerships between people and local communities on continents like Africa and Eurasia and Oceania as a way to empower local communities to take action to implement the local solutions to achieving the global goals locally through their community-based enterprises and businesses. So again, you'll find the link to the island. So this is the final slide. There are actually 10 more slides, but I got them coming full circle back to the Drawdown Markham opening slide, where I'd like to emphasize again our partnership with UnityNet, where we can now consider to implement partnerships with any other local community or organization in the world as a way to help implement local open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure and the related enterprises, learning programs for young people and families as we move forward toward a globalized, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind, especially as we approach 2030 and the end of the SDGs, where we also seek ways to learn about solutions to our various predicaments like climate change, biodiversity, energy, housing, food security, and reliable income, and where we can also find solutions to all of these problems in our own local communities, if only we begin to develop partnerships, not only locally, but globally as well. So we want to celebrate the diversity of our communities. The diversity of humanity is actually one of our most important assets. So learning how to be compassionate entrepreneurs who have the knowledge, the skills, and the empathy to change the future of a global economy so it will serve all people and all living things in the natural world equally is one of the most important things that we can do as parents of children who are seeking ways to create a better future for themselves and for their own children and grandchildren, and at least the next 7 generations of human beings on this singular, unique, and beautiful planet we call Earth, which is the only place in the universe where human beings naturally thrive, but only if we take care of Mother Nature and take care of each other as well. So I do want to mention the presentation today is being done as COP27 rolls into its second week. It's worth mentioning and keeping an eye on its thematic days and the discussions around them. So November 7th was actually Just Transition Food Security and Innovative Finance for Climate and Development Day. November 8th was Investing in the Future of Energy, Water Security, and Sustainability of Vulnerable Communities. November 9th, that had a theme of Finance Day. November 10th was Science, Youth, and Nature and Future Generations Day. November 11th was Decarbonization Day. November 12th was Adaptation and Agriculture Day. November 14th was Gender and Water Day. And today, November 15th, is Energy, ACE, and Civil Society Day. Again, I will put more information in the chat. But tomorrow as well is Biodiversity Day, and then November 16th is Solutions Day. So at the end of this presentation, if we have time, I could also play an ACE and Civil Society Day video for everyone. It's fairly short, but in the meantime, I will put it into the chat. So last month, we asked some important questions of the 2022 Markham municipal election candidates, many of whom joined us on our Drawdown monthly Zoom call, just like this one. So the first thing that I asked of those candidates was, if elected, would you pledge to work with the members of Drawdown Markham and UnityNet GTA to plant a youth peace garden at the City of Markham municipal offices? Again, you can find the various news of the candidates in the chat. So as we move forward, I will let everybody know what are these different outcomes of that election. But I noted as well that we would like to establish the UnityNet Youth Peace Gardens as a network of gardens across the city and do a Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremony at each one of them with the owners of the land and those who use it on a regular basis. For each youth peace garden, we also want to raise an Indigenous unity flag ceremony together with the local Indigenous peoples, who may also wish to do some drumming and or smudging of sage and or sweetgrass in order to ensure that we're not forgetting our local Indigenous partners. So many of these ceremonies will be done on World Environment Day as well, during our yearly Abraham Project celebrations on June 5th, which started this year, but we also will have an event here in Markham starting 2023. So again, you will find additional information about the Unity Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree plantings and the International Indigenous Unity Flag Organization, which we are also partnering with as well. This summer, we did the event in the city of Mississauga. Again, you'll find the links to those organizations and events as well that we are attempting to partner with here, as well as, again, our network, UnityNet Ontario, UnityNet Canada, and partner organizations through UnityNet that are in Africa, as well as the Global Unity Network. The second question I did ask last month of our municipal election candidates was, would you encourage our local businesses through the Markham Chambers of Commerce and the Board of Trade to also plant youth peace gardens at all of their headquarters? This is especially important to do with any and all businesses and organizations in Markham, the York region, and the Greater Toronto area who are members of the UN Global Compact, and allow them to set up those gardens in their local offices here, whether they are headquarters of these companies and organizations or not. But what we would like to do is partner with these local boards of trade and other businesses. The third question I asked of the municipal candidates was, would you do the same thing for the various local schools, both public and private, and all levels of learning, from kindergartens, primary and secondary schools up to York University, Seneca College, and the community service organizations like Lions Club and Rotary, YMCA, and encourage them to also plant youth peace gardens in their own properties as well. So again, you will find a link to the relevant network, which is the Unity Learning Network, which is supporting the Learning Partnership for Global Unity. So the other thing I mentioned as I summarized what I had asked the candidates in the election last month was to note that the members of Drawdown Markham and UnityNet would love to see these youth peace gardens popping up all over the city, planted by residents and businesses and families and children, even like scout groups, as a reminder that the city of Markham and our citizens are committed to achieving our own sustainability plans, and we'll pledge to domesticate the SDGs, or those global goals, into all of our local communities as part of the effort to implement this groundbreaking green print, Markham's Community Sustainability Plan, and improve our natural environment, enhance the quality of life in the city. So we want to ensure that participants on this call understand that the green print is a 50-plus year plan, and it has a bold vision and a strong leadership commitment to make Markham one of the most livable and sustainable communities in North America, quote unquote, where the focus is to develop corporate and community initiatives that promote energy conservation and efficiency, green technology, food security, and environmental enhancement. So with the city of Markham itself has noted that together these initiatives and these innovative programs have dramatically reduced Markham's carbon footprint and improved our natural environment. So the goal of the city of Markham is to protect the public and respect the natural and built environments through excellence in sustainable community planning and infrastructure management programs. I noted as well that the youth peace gardens are simple. They're gardens that have a tree of peace and reconciliation planted, along with the Indigenous Unity flag and a peace pole, and usually a commemorative plaque marking the spot as an important site in the community to have conversations about various local solutions for achieving the global goals, starting, of course, with those sustainable development goals. Again, you will find a link to the UnityNet Youth Peace Gardens Network, along with the links to the Unity Tree of Peace and Tree Planting Network and the information about Peace Polls and the Peace Poll project, as well as our own public group for UnityNet and related organizations in our community, such as Scouts groups, and information about the UN SDGs. We also do have an interns network for young people to join, as well as the professionals network for people who are older, perhaps even approaching retirement in some cases. So I did mention the gardens would also be symbolic of the City of Markham's municipal energy plan called Getting to Zero, a comprehensive long-term citywide energy plan that has the objective of achieving net zero emissions by 2050. So this is in addition to the Youth Peace Gardens also being symbolic of the City of Markham's inclusivity, equity, diversity, and accessibility plan, for which the City of Markham is committed to supporting people and communities in all the diversity and stands firmly against all forms of hate, racism, and discrimination. It is one of the City of Markham's key strategic priorities embedded in the city's strategic plan called Building Markham's Future Together. So our Drawdown Markham and UnityNet GTA members would also like to help the members of our local communities, including the residents, the businesses, the institutions, and other community organizations in the City of Markham in ways that will allow us to become the first net negative city in the world that's actively implementing local drawdown solutions that create local jobs, help to accelerate the path to net zero, and then move us beyond net zero into negative emissions territory, where the city becomes an example of a drawdown city. I did also mention to the City Council candidates last month that with the establishment of the Youth Peace Gardens all across the City of Markham, which can also be established at the head offices of our local businesses and institutions and community organizations, and at our schools, and possibly also in some of our public parks and along public pathways for walking and biking. With the construction of the Youth Peace Gardens in the City of Markham, we could also become eligible to become an international peace city as well, joining the nearly 400 others around the world who have done so already. So in the chat, you'll find a link to Markham's diversity and accessibility information, along with some of the information about the Markham Municipal Energy Plan that I mentioned, as well as the International Cities of Peace and that global network. So finally, I wanted to mention a few other things as well, although I did not expect any promises to be made at the time. But what we would like to do is also work closely with the City of Markham and the York Region District School Boards, along with York University, Seneca College, various other local community groups and service organizations like Rotary Markham, and establish a formal INAB collaborative with and for the residents of the City of Markham, so we can begin to consider the establishment of our own local community garden learning center or community hub to be shared among the community members here, used by all the schools and community partners to deliver the education and training that the various young people and professionals of Markham will require to learn and as a means to not only survive this global warming that is upon us, but potentially to thrive even in a warming and chaotic climate now and into the future. So the INAB Collaborative is intended to empower our young people to be mentored by our elders to take local action and deliver these humanitarian enterprise solutions locally in a way that ensures that we leave no one behind as we transition our economy to a globalized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy right here in the City of Markham, in the Rouge and Don watersheds, in the Great Lakes Basin of the Greater Toronto Area, on the north edge of Lake Ontario here in Canada. Because once we establish our INAB Collaborative, we can begin planning our next big steps, which will be the organization of a local public fun festival with bubble fun dancing, bubble fun sports for young people and families to participate in learning about these local drawdown solutions in a way that's engaging and fun to do. we call it edutainment. Bubble Fun festivals normally take place in August, on any date between August 9th and 19th, where August 9th is the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, and August 19th is World Humanitarian Day, with between those two dates being August 12th, International Youth Day. So again, you will find information about all of these different events in the chat, so that people can understand what are these days, why are they important to the work that we are doing here to localize the goals. Again, also in the chat is information about the PTA Bubble Fun Festival network and that public group, which is also has an international network supporting our Spark for Humanity Super Jubilee 400 Spark Classrooms network as well. We are also supporting the original Global Unity Pandemic team, which here in Canada, in the Toronto area, had created our Unity Pandemic team, Pandemic PTA, back during those lockdowns in 2020. And we are a part of the Global Greater Unity Pandemic Collaborative. We are coordinating the local Greater Toronto campaigns. So our partnership for the practical local drawdown solutions, demonstration, integration, deployment, promotion of and for these solutions within the various communities here in the Greater Toronto area. So I mentioned earlier on Monday, October 24th, that all local municipalities in Ontario held municipal elections to decide who should become our local decision makers at the municipal level. This included electing our mayor, or re-electing him, Frank Scarpitti. He was re-elected actually to his 5th straight term as mayor, garnering more than 44,000 votes, besting former regional councillor Don Hamilton, who received less than 25,000. So four regional councillors were also elected, including Michael Chan, Alan Ho, Jim Jones, and Joe Lee, who are all familiar names in the region. Jim Jones in particular had an interesting election platform because he would like to invite various companies and solution providers from across Ontario, across Canada, and from around the world to set up their North American head offices in the city of Markham, possibly in the Markham Mixed Innovation District, especially if they have innovative solutions for growing food in cities like the city of Markham and those in the Greater Toronto area. Essentially, Jim Jones has had an ongoing platform election promise to establish the city of Markham as a vertical farming innovation hub in Canada and North America, especially for those solutions that are applicable to harsher and more extreme climates like here in Canada, where the weather is cold and it's normally impossible to grow anything in the winter season for nearly 8 months a year because the ground is frozen, like trying to grow food on rocks. And any plants that are here are dormant, hiding away from about October until the springtime when it comes in, which is usually around April or May. So Jim Jones' plan is to ensure food security for the residents of the Greater Toronto area by demonstrating solutions for growing food 365 days a year, even in some of the harshest conditions imaginable, while still being able to pledge that the city of Markham is able to achieve its net zero ambitions across all sectors of the economy, including scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, as will soon be required by the United Nations for those countries who have signed on to the Paris Agreement, which includes Canada. Again, in the chat, you'll find additional information about the 2022 Markham municipal election results, including the election of Mayor Frank Scarpitti and his bio, which is included in the chat, along with regional council members, Michael Chen, Alan Ho, Jim Jones, Joe Lee, Keith Irish, Rich Lau, Reed McAlpine, Karen Ray, Andrew Keys, Amanda Young-Colucci, and Juanita Nathan. along with my own local councillor here in Ward 8 easily. Again, we also, during that election, elected some public trustees for our schools, the York Region District School Board and the York Catholic District School Board. Each have trustees, 4 in the case of the York Region District School Board, 2 in the case of Catholic School Board. Since we are in Canada, we do have French and English school boards. So the UnityNet Smart Cities Network is also something I am putting into the chat for people to potentially join if they wish, along with our Smart Greenhouse Network and the UnityNet Tourism for SCG Network, which of course we want to leverage those types of existing worldwide networks as we move forward, so that what we do has relevance not just here in Markham, but also globally. And finally, I am putting in a link to UnityNet Net Zero Canada, since this is the goal of the city of Markham. And so I do want to mention one more thing. The UN just issues a report on the 8th of November 2022. The report is called the High Level, or the report of the High Level Expert Group on Net Zero Commitments, which noted that a growing number of governments and non-state actors are pledging to be carbon free, which is obviously good news, as noted by the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. The problem that the report noted, however, is that the criteria and benchmarks for these net zero commitments have varying levels of rigor and loopholes. Guterres actually noted that these loopholes are quite wide, as he quoted, wide enough to drive a diesel truck through. Guterres also noted as well, we must have zero tolerance for net zero greenwashing. Today's expert group report is a how-to guide to ensure credible, accountable net zero pledges, and it provides clarity in 4 key areas, including environmental integrity, credibility, accountability, and the role of governments. It also focused on non-state actors, including businesses, financial institutions, cities, and regions. They also noted that the issue of environmental integrity, the IPCC, is still their scientific North Star. It was also noted the net zero pledges that are made must be in line with IPCC scenario that are limiting warming to 1.5 degrees, which means global emissions must decline by at least 45% by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. So the report also noted that any pledges that are made by state or non-state entities to achieve their net zero goals should have interim targets every 5 years, starting in 2025. So the targets must cover all greenhouse gas emissions and all scopes of emissions, which translates into the following. For financial institutions, this means all financed activities. For businesses, it means all emissions, direct, indirect, and those originating from the supply chains. And for cities and regions, which is of course important here, like the city of Markham in York Region, it means all territorial emissions. As Guterres noted, the message is clear to all those managing existing voluntary initiatives, as well as CEOs, mayors, and governors committed to net zero. Abide by the standard and update your guidelines right away, and certainly no later than COP28 next year. In other words, the UN is putting their foot down, holding these entities' feet to the fire, the corporations, the financial institutions, the cities, and the regions, to make good on their pledges and achieve net zero in reality and not just on paper, which may just mean a lot of squashed and burnt feet in the near future. So again, you will find more information in the chat about this March 31st, 2022, the expert group on net zero emissions, commitment to non-state entities was put together. The group was chaired by Catherine McKenna, former Canadian Minister of Environment and Climate Change, who noted that recent avalanche of net zero pledges by businesses, investors, cities, and regions will be vital to keep 1.5 degrees alive and build toward a safe and healthy planet, but only if all the pledges have transparent plans, robust near-term action, and are implemented in full. So again, you will find in the chat that I will be putting the information about all of the members of this commission that was put together by the United Nations, including the contact information where these people can be found, who made this report and assessment as well. They are very credible people who have a lot of background in these sorts of issues and have been working on these for quite a long time. And it is a very international group of people. I do also want to share a link to the Climate Council, which was created where the European Central Bank revised their deadlines for banks to deal with climate change and environmental risks. So they now have until the end of 2024, so in a little less than, or a little over 2 years, under the terms laid out by the guide that was published in 2020. So the ECB sets new deadlines as a result of its thematic review and found that even though 85% of banks now have basic measures in place, they're a long way from effective implementation. So almost all of the banks, 96% of major blind spots in seeing climate change and environmental risks. So the ECB covers 186 European banks, both large and small, in that thematic review. So the European Union has agreed to create a new law that means its 127 member states have to set targets to reduce carbon emissions by 2030. So agriculture, domestic maritime transport, heating of buildings, road transport, small industrial installations, waste management are all the prime sectors targeting by this new legislation. So those sectors currently generate about 60% of greenhouse gas emissions in Europe. So they have something called the effort sharing regulation, or ESR, which aims to spread the cost of the cuts in a fair way, where richer countries such as Denmark, Germany, Luxembourg, and Sweden are taking 50% reductions, while smaller countries like Bulgaria, the target is lower at 10%. And so I would like to put in as well the related networks for UniNet, which are the Climate Smart Infrastructure Network, and the related Climate Smart networks we have through Energyne University, the Energyne New Green Trades Alliance, and as well, of course, the Global Partnership for Regenerative Development. And so one more thing I do want to note is there is a Net Zero Asset Managers initiative, NZAM, that was recently put together as well. So that NAZM or NZAM is a group which collectively represents more than $66 trillion in assets under management. Signed up to the Net Zero Asset Management Initiative. So far, 86 of those 290 have disclosed revised targets, which means that already $21 trillion in funds have a firm commitment to be net zero by 2050 or earlier. NZAM initiative is part of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which was put together by Mark Carney, the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance, which brings together over 160 firms together responsible for assets in excess of $70 trillion. It was originally created by the Asia Investor Group on Climate Change, CDP, CIRIS, the Investor Group on Climate Change, or IGCC, the Institutional Investors Group on Climate Change, and Principles for Responsible Investment. So they launched just in April of this year. So they had an industry launch and press release where they convened the Net Zero Banking Alliance, also announced on that day, co-launched by the UNEP Finance Initiative and the Financial Services Task Force of the Sustainable Markets Initiative. They will also soon be creating an insurance for Net Zero Group. And you can find more information and a full list of participating banks at links that you find in the chat. So they are linking executive compensation and ESG performance as well, using lessons learned and insights for what's ahead. There are now more than 500 or more and more 500 S&P 500 American companies are linking executive compensation to this ESG performance. So it's rose from 66% in 2020 to 73% of S&P 500 companies doing this last year. So the report also found that diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, goal setting was increasingly important for those companies, with more than half of them making it a priority, up from 35% in 2020, where companies want ESG performance as a more quantitative part of the company's overall financial performance, data of which fits much better with investors' preferences and expectations. So this is the final slide from last month, where we closed out my presentation for the day by opening up the discussion for all on the call. I did have a couple more slides this time around because I wanted to talk about the outcomes of the municipal election that took place on Monday, November 24th, provide some additional information about climate finance and commitments by non-state actors. But I also wanted to mention our Sunlight Spectacle global hybrid virtual and in-person edutainment events that the Global Unity Network organizes every time there's a significant solar eclipse visible by people somewhere in the world. The first Sunlight Spectacle event that we did was on Sunday, June 1st, 2020, during the pandemic lockdowns, where we brought together a very few people, social distance and masked, of course, in order to promote our localization programs globally for the first time ever. So the journey of the eclipse events, when we do them, we celebrate local efforts by the citizens of every one of our countries where we live, who can see the eclipse as they locally implement these global goals. And so our events include live broadcasts, interviews, music, and are done for the duration of the solar eclipse. They're coordinated with the associates who are in places like Bermuda, who are spearheading this Super Jubilee 400 and the Spark for Humanity campaigns. I also want to briefly mention the initial discussions we are having regarding an Indigenous Grandmothers Earth Walk 2025 showcase event. So in about 3 years. So this event is intended to be a walk or perhaps an e-bike journey across Canada from the East Coast to the West Coast, from Newfoundland to Vancouver. So that Indigenous grandmothers and families of Turtle Island in Africa and the world can plant a tree of peace and reconciliation, raise an Indigenous unity flag during and ahead of the Invictus Games, which was announced by Prince Harry and Duchess of Sussex at the Invictus Games in The Hague earlier this year. We also want to host a Grandmothers Indigenous Bubble Fun Multicultural Family Festival next year here in the city of Markham, with the city and the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club and others, to bring awareness to all of these eco-villages that are being planned and built around the world, even in the biggest and busiest cities like here in the Greater Toronto area, where we can plan to build at least one as a Unity Peace Center, showcasing all of the 5 different open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions for achieving a compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So again, in the chat, you will find additional information about these Toronto Summer Spectacle event that we did, along with information about our GTA Bubble Fun Festival and the International Bubble Fun Festival discussions as well that are part of the global community network. But so at this time, we can open up discussions, questions, and answers. Before I close out, though, I do want to mention that I will be following up with everyone who came on the Zoom call today. We'll provide a link to the recording along with the PDF file available online, so everyone has a record of the presentation, the discussion, the Zoom chat notes from today, sending the same information. I will send it to all the candidates in our local election here who won the City of Markham elections, congratulating them, and so that everybody has a chance to equally understand what it is that we're doing to empower our community members to implement these local solutions for achieving the global goals through the establishment of these local humanitarian enterprises run by our local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are establishing these local community garden learning centers here in the City of Markham, York Region, and Greater Toronto area. Again, everything is now opened up for any discussions that you would like to have or comments. Be in the chat as well. Encounter AHIABGA Media Portal, the AHIABGA Action Team Sustainable Development Goals Facebook site, as well as a link to that video if you would like to watch that ACE and Civil Society Day promotional video by the United Nations. Mitch, you would like to say something?
Yes, Lloyd. What a wonderful compilation of information. You did a spectacular job. However, I'm not known for giving compliments, so I'd really like to ask some pointed questions. First question: is the board at Markham, the city government, going to do anything to implement UNDRIP? If they do not, I'm not aware of any way to get UNDRIP into Canadian law. It's been stopped. Well, I won't take you through the whole story because I have other questions, but let UNDRIP, if you're not going to take UNDRIP and carry the banner of UNDRIP into the city government of Markham, it's all for garnished. Beyond that, there's a larger issue with even approaching Markham without asking Markham to appoint your initiative as a reporting agency to the provincial government of Ontario. If you don't do that, you'll find yourself in the same structural dilemma that the city of Toronto has, because it can't do anything legally. As I'm sure Markham can't do anything. When I say legally, I mean without the approval of the province. So if you might even petition the board in Markham that you be the representative at the province for the Markham community. And I think this would be a good step. And at the same time, you can express the value of UNDRIP and why we need UNDRIP. To speak on the community gardens, you mentioned them a lot. I did a little reading on what was posted there, and I was dismayed to read that the food that what you're going to grow is not going to be food. That destroys the whole idea of having a community garden. You just shot yourself in the foot. You got to take that out and make it a condition. You're going to grow food that either the restaurants can sell it or the people can eat it. But to just grow for ornaments is like another level of craziness. I don't accept it for myself, and I would urge you to change your thinking on that.
Okay,
As
so
far as
that's, oh, you have more?
yes, I've got a few more. You want me to stop?
No, your comments are absolutely vital to, I think, moving forward. And I think that I would like to take that under consideration for sure, because we wanted to make what we wanted to do was make it easier for these corporations to set up these gardens. But of course they can grow food if they want to. And
Well,
maybe we will make it a stipulation that they should be doing that.
absolutely, and you should be consulting with the restaurants to see what they may like. So if you let's say you have 10 gardens growing stuff, they can be feeding a local restaurant, and generating, the gardens can generate money, because you go to a restaurant and you say, what foods would you like us to grow for you? And then your community gardens grows something that is needed by the high-end restaurants, for example. And I pointed this example out to you many years ago. That's how Cookstown Green got invented. They went to all the chefs of the top restaurants in town and said, what would you like me to grow for you? And they did, and they were very successful. So to not use that model, I don't know why you would want to not use that model, you know. So,
well, yeah, absolutely. Let's
yeah,
discuss. I'd like to discuss with our GTA team, of course, to actually do a pilot on that.
The next thing with the Unity Gardens, you must have a manual. You have to have a manual that explains the different aspects of a Unity garden, including the planting of the peace bowl, if you're doing that, or the planting of the peace tree. You have those stories incorporated into the Unity Gardens, because right now, just the phrase Unity Gardens, I see the problems I'm having in building the Unity Garden here in Mexico. And because I don't have a manual, it's sort of up in the air to the guy who's searching the seeds. You know, which seeds are we going to grow here? We can grow like ancient Maya seeds, or we can grow contemporary, but not GMO. We want to be very careful that we're not growing GMO seeds. That's enough for Unity Gardens. I touched on UNDRIP. I have to stress, without the city of Markham doing what we've done here in Playa del Carmen, we've integrated UNDRIP into the city bylaws. If you do that, then you can claim to be the first municipality in Canada to integrate UNDRIP, and the indigenous community will love you. But I would suspect that you do not have one signed agreement with one tribe in Canada, because they don't do business that way. If you do have an signed agreement, Mazel tov, I'd like to know how you did it and which chief you had to pay $1 million, because they don't do anything without $1 million. So I don't imagine you have any chief signed on to your initiative. It's wonderful to have a chief. I would suggest you might approach to make an alliance with Larry Frost down at the indigenous community on Spadina. Larry Frost is the director of the indigenous community for Toronto. He means well, and if Larry's on this call, he's not the brightest guy in the world, nor is he the most trustworthy. And he's running the indigenous community in Toronto. Pardon me, Larry. It's about time we had a little honest debate, you and I, if he is there. I don't
I don't know if
suspect he
he's.
can't.
This is being broadcast and recorded, so there's always the
Okay.
possibility that they could
So,
watch this later.
Someone may send it to Larry Frost and say, there's a guy that loves you, Larry, but he doesn't speak very highly of you. So
I'll
you
make
can
sure
say,
to see. I'll make sure to CC Larry when I send this out to everybody.
Okay. The other thing I want to address is, well, you didn't mention at all the UN resident coordinator, and by not mentioning him, you're well, in a way, you're insulting me, but that's okay. I can handle it. You're also insulting all the other agencies around the world that need to use the UN resident coordinator to get their government to do anything. Otherwise, you have no voice in any of those other countries. We've already been through Ghana and Sierra Leone and Nigeria and all those countries. We can't talk to the UN resident coordinator because they don't want to talk to us. They don't want to do what their job description says. You may want to point.
I think one thing that we would like to do, of course, is partner with, because that's what we do, right? We partner. So we would like to partner with the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities, which is, of course, Joan Kerr in Oshawa. Joan Kerr and the foundation are recognized ECOSOC members. So if we go through Joan to talk with the UNRC, I think they'll be obliged to listen to her, because she is ECOSOC recognized, whereas you aren't. And I think that's the big difference.
No, I'm recognized as being a non-representative. They wrote me a letter saying you can't do that. And I'm saying, well, I'm doing it. I'm the interim UN resident coordinator for Canada. I've been doing the job for 6 years.
Mm.
You know,
it's not recognized. That's the difference.
Well, I know it. Well, so get one of your people to either get me fired or get me hired. I'm doing the job that's necessary to be done by the UN resident coordinator, and that's by supporting you. That my works, what is the United Nations Association of Canada? How many interns are they providing to you, for example? Probably none. They don't have
We don't have any relationship with them.
Well, we did have one.
We deliberately sought not to seek those relationships. At your advice, by the way, Mitch.
No, I never advised that. Don't say that. I said you have to bring them to task. You know, like they're not doing their job. If they were doing, I said, I'm just saying they're not doing. And this is another thing that maybe your audience doesn't know. The SDGs are going to fail by 2024. By 2024, it's on track to be announced as a failure to fail in 2024. And why do I know that? Because they're following the same track as the MDGs that failed in its 8th year.
There's already talk of it. So we seem to have lost Mitch.
People don't know that. People don't know that.
Your connection is not very good, Mitch. You're breaking up.
I'm sorry?
I said your connection is very slow.
Well, it's 500 pages. Yeah, well, do you want me to continue with the last bit?
Yeah, yes, please go ahead. We just couldn't hear you for the last 10 or 15 seconds.
Sometimes that's a blessing.
You are frozen.
Well,
at least he has a good smile.
It's nice to be in this hot weather and knowing that I was frozen. So you noted on one of your slides there the CCC, and that's like that's the guys who are going to be giving out the money, the trillions of dollars you're talking about. Nobody at the CCC they don't know what they're doing there. It's another, now you have to be at their door, but they don't know what they're doing because they're working with the old broken UN system that's run by the resident coordinators that don't exist in the donor countries. The donor countries still don't have a UN resident coordinator. No matter how I cajole Antonio Gutierrez, he just doesn't hear me. The UN resident coordinator does not exist in the donor countries. A conundrum, no doubt, a foolish situation, but that's our reality. And since we don't have one, to talk about the trillions of dollars that is going to go through the UN FCCC, I don't know why. I don't see that as a reality happening. It's going to, because the SDGs did not and do not have a formal journal on how to make partnerships. They don't have one. They're flying by the seat of their pants, hoping that someone's going to create one. I'm not aware of
which
anyone.
we are.
Well, you'll
So we
create
can be their model.
You could be, but then you've got to sell yourself through to them, and you don't have the you don't have the numbers. They're a numbers.
We don't, not yet.
Well,
If through our partnerships we are able to reach those, we may be able to reach those numbers.
Well, I'm setting up the UN Office of the Future. If I felt that you were going to become coherent, and I say you got a great summary, but it's not coherent. If you want me to put my design team on it, because I've got a design guy now making the UN Office of the Future website as part of the Somos Avalon website. Somos Avalon is our spiritual outreach. It's our 11:11 meeting every Sunday morning. We have a minute for peace.
Which I watch.
Oh, good. I never see you on there. Did you go and watch on Facebook?
No, I just watch on Facebook. I listen. I put these headphones on, and I do, as I'm doing my work, I'm listening to the droning of the music.
Well, to receive the full benefit of that experience, we will have an instruction manual that is on the Somos Avalon website that is going to be changed, because the parts that I want on there are not on there yet. But that is that when you're watching and immersing yourself in the sound, that you also do a copal or sage smudge when you're hearing the sounds. The smudging experience cannot be overstated, and it's often understated, because when you're dealing, so you're taking a two-dimensional experience and limiting it because you're just listening to the sound, which is the key component, because the visuals, we don't have what I would say a film director that is directing our events at the level that I want it directed.
Well, obviously, it seems like it's on a tripod. Just most of the time, the camera's just one angle.
No, and we have a roving camera guy too.
Oh, okay.
We're post-producing it into a program that's going to go global. So, but the sound is important, and I'm glad you're capturing the sound, because the sound will raise your Kundalini energy. That with combining it with copal or some other smudge process and an intentional process you will get a much better benefit of the experience.
So
We're
I'm going
just,
to have to try to find copal incense or something. 'Cause I have incense burners around the house, but not copal.
well, you might be better using sweetgrass, although we use copal down here because it's native to the land here. I think sweetgrass,
Oh,
yeah, that's, what is that? That's sage. That's
Sage, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
sage is the
use
other
sage.
option.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sage, sweetgrass for, copal first, sweetgrass second, sage third, and there's other ones too. Don't be limited by what I've learned, because I only know what I know, and when I travel around, I don't remember what we used up with the Micmac in north of Montreal. I don't remember what. I know we smudged. I don't remember if it was sweetgrass or something else. Every community has their own.
Yeah.
The one in Toronto uses both sage and sweetgrass.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah. I guess I'm going to focus on UNDRIP and focus on getting that into whoever on city council in Markham. Ask them if they're going to be, you may have to do some research, because UNDRIP was already passed in Parliament 3 times in the House of Commons, twice in the Senate. But it was defeated on the 3rd reading in the Senate, and it's lying in limbo, and nobody's doing anything about it because it's not top of mind for anyone. That's why the Indigenous people are still not considered human beings in Canada. Until UNDRIP gets put into the law, that's the way it is. And in a way, if we don't do something at city level, and I'm only suggesting city level because the feds have dropped it. The province is not going to pick it up. That's for sure.
Not Ontario anyway. Maybe in BC or something.
Well, we should push the Ontario government to take it on. And Markham could be the municipality to do that, because Toronto won't, because John Tory has his brain shut down. And John, if you're watching this, learn Poe, John. You know me long enough to know that you don't know about the UN Office of the Future. You don't know that, John Tory. Someone should send this to John Tory and tell him to wake the F up, pardon my language, that and I guess the last thing I want to say is not that because you talked about it, because I think you didn't talk about it. It's about the area of corporate social responsibility. We don't have it in the reporting systems of our corporations. We're not doing it effectively, mainly because the accounting agencies haven't adopted beyond triple bottom line accounting yet. And the world stage, and I'll point to the guy who writes for Fortune 500, Alan Murray. He just wrote today an article identifying the problem with mental health within the corporations and within the CEO community. The fact that mental health, or any health, all health, not just mental health, and mental health was where I first got involved with this. When I first in Canada got involved with the mental health industry, it was in a conversation with John Evans, who was the publisher of Toronto Star, and him and Mike Wilson, the Minister of Finance of Ontario, they were willing to join me and champion the notion of moving health into the reporting systems of corporations. This was just when triple bottom line was getting enunciated back in the 1900s, early 2000s, sorry, the early 2000s. I lost 100 years there. It's how I stay young.
I knew you were old, Mitch. My God, that's you're a lot older than I thought.
So the notion I want to bring here is corporate reporting, that we need to have corporations look to beyond triple bottom line and involving the health of the community, because without that, in the next 10 years, we'll be in the same state corporately that we are today. And I just took a strip off Alan Murray this morning saying, why were you shocked? I've been talking about this since 1995. You know, why are you shocked that mental health is going to be an issue? You know, anyways, so that's, maybe I have to start worrying about my own mental health.
Well, you know,
I've got to be crazy to still be doing what I'm doing.
It's such an issue that in the past month I've been asked, and I've spoken twice at 2 global events to talk. One was a youth-led event because we have a youth mental health crisis. More than 50% of youth are. It's bad, and I don't know how we're going to get back from it, but we need to change some systems. We need to try different ways with the kids, because I know it's a big system, health and mental health, but the kids are really in a bad way globally.
I agree, and I think that rather than addressing mental health straight on, or any of the issues I'm talking about, it's best that we start teaching PO. PO is a way that we open up kids' minds to the future, because every teacher in the schools today is that when they went to school, they don't know anything beyond what they know when they went to school. They didn't go out on, like I went on a 1,000-day voyage to find out what was happening out there. I didn't know what was happening. I went on 1,000 days. I traveled the world. I sat in a sacred circle with many indigenous communities. I know which communities do sweat lodge different ways. I'm aware of it. And now the sweat lodge is merely a spiritual experience, as is our Sunday morning experience. I have to say we did it this Sunday without our lead guy. Our lead guy is going on he's on a peace pole planting mission. He's traveling for the next month, planting peace poles.
Is that the guy with the long one?
Yeah. He's generally
right
recognized by the fact that, he sits in the middle because he can't walk. He was a quadriplegic and has been overusing the power of his mind and energy to be able to heal others. And he's doing a heck of a job, I must say. He's an inspiration if you know his predicament. And even if you don't know his predicament and you catch the vibe, you will raise your energy to the next.
I can sort of tell that he's like the center of this grouping, because it just, your eyes get directed to him.
Well, that's because the camera's there, like you pointed out. It's on a tripod.
No, but you can see everybody playing their instruments, but you watch him more than anything.
Well, he's leading the group. Him and the guy behind him on his right, Johann Bach, is a high-level concert producer in orchestra, and he tells Juan what to do, and Juan and him work it out, and everybody else follows what they do. But
anyway,
we haven't. Yeah, That's.
I'm thinking that we're
I'm-
approaching the 2-hour mark here, I think. It is 2:45 now. We started at 1. Well, we were about 10 or 15 minutes late, so it's started.
Well, leave it. I would like you to ask people if they have a question of me.
Well, right now, there's
If you
only
have
the
a
4 of
certain
us
number of
left on
people
this
there.
call.
Oh, okay. Well, ask the 4 of you. Is there any, because, maybe you have a question and maybe you don't.
Mhm. So, but what I wanted to do actually, just to finish out our day today, was just play that one. It's actually a 1-minute video, just to wrap up. If there are no other comments, for instance, Heinrich, did you have a few words to say today?
Thank you, Lloyd. Yeah, I mean, my head is spinning with all the information that was disseminated tonight. My understanding is that we are creating a model for the rest of us to follow in our local communities. And I think in that case, it's a wonderful exercise and leading the pack now with certain information and methodology to make things happen. As far as our friend Mitch is concerned, yeah, controversial. We need to address several issues, and most probably some of those issues we haven't identified yet. And hopefully, as we go along over the next month, we will get to a point where we can do that. I think that my understanding is that we will use this, if I might call it, the template to venture out now in our local areas and find our feet in the same way. And I think that is good leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heinrich. I was thinking about it just as I was putting together this presentation for today. I spent a few hours yesterday doing that, putting the extra slides and changing the dialogue. But I realized that really dawned on me that the starting point of all this really is that partnership template that we created. It started when we created Drawdown Markham. We decided to create partnerships to move forward, and that would be the way we would work. And we were having dialogues with Drawdown Toronto, and the people there like David Berman and whatnot. And it was actually through the dialogue at OCAD University that they gave us this 4-sector partnership template, and they said, "Oh, use this. We've got public, private, civil society, academic, and that's what you should follow." And I said, well, over time, and especially also with the conversations with Mitch, we realized there's a lot more sectors, especially as Mitch was introducing us to the
12.
The 12 sector models that he has, and there's a lot more people that we can partner with beyond those initial 4, which was what they wanted us to use. So we added another one, and it was 5, and then we added another one, and it was 6, and then we came to the 7. And I think we're going to stop at the 7, but actually the 7 is not 7, as I've mentioned before during the IGU summit. The heptamatrix partnership is actually 8, because the Indigenous partnership is the 8th partner of that heptamatrix that we use. So there are actually 8. And I mentioned that now during the
How
IGU
long is it
summit.
going to take you to get to 12?
Well, I don't know, because now we have this model. We don't want to really move much beyond where we're at, I think.
That's
right
not an answer.
at this moment.
Well, if you don't move right up to 12, you're being misguided. You know there's 12 sectors. The wise guys developed the model. I just got a letter for 3 days ago from a guy who wanted to use the model but change the colors, and I said, please advise me what colors are you proposing and why. I'm not going to let him use my model without understanding the colors that are there. because that model is a universal holistic model. If you use the term holistic in any of your presentations and don't use the model, you're not being holistic. End of story. Bang. Barbara Marx Hubbard was the woman who first came up with those 12. Actually, we came up with 24, to be honest, and we distilled it down to 12. And then she went and put her own color scheme on it, which was absurd because you couldn't use it to teach from. The one that we have now is teachable, usable, workable, and delivers holistic thinking models. And if we don't want holistic thinking, then let's say we're not holistic and only use 8. It's okay. You're only using 8 of the 12, but let's know which ones you're leaving out. You know, that's why you have a holistic model. One of my associates many years ago, 1984, Phil Gang, he was a global thinker, and we were having a meeting down in a place called the Oasis down in California. And I suggested to Phil that we should be developing a model. And he said, no, we can't have a framework because a framework restricts thinking. And it's a good argument. And I said, well, then let's not call it holistic. At least we can apologize for the lack of holistic thinking that is in the medicine wheel that we present to you. We can apologize for it, but we don't need to apologize it if you're only using 8 of the 12, because you don't have the tools to evaluate. 12 is a good number. Jesus found there was a good number. He had 12 disciples. So,
I tend to like 5 and 10 because it's the number of fingers on their hands.
well, that's because of your Christian upbringing, but not your Jewish upbringing. I had the benefit of both. That the 10 Commandments were very good, you know, but
well, that's not my thinking at all. It's not around 10 Commandments. I didn't even learn them because I never went to church ever.
Well, the 10 Sfirot, the 10 questions that we use, the 10 transformers, that's all based on Kabbalah thinking, but it's only 10 questions, but it's overlayered with understanding Poe. I use the 10 questions to teach Poe, and when we finally get it into an app, and that's not going to be too far away because I think my guy can do it. Although he's taking all my different websites I've had for the last 20 years and incorporating them somewhat intelligently, we hope. And we'll see what we look like in 6 months.
Okay,
Anyhow.
well, I think we've been on the call for quite a long time today. As I said, I think I would like to just finish up perhaps with the video that comes from the COP27 meeting that's taking place right now in Egypt.
Send a copy of this to the United Nations Association of Canada. If it's going to go to ECOSOC, send a copy and let them know at ECOSOC that they should present it to the UNA Association, because I suspect, I do not know, I suspect the UNA Association does not talk with ECOSOC. ECOSOC is an anomaly. Is that the word? I need help with that. ECOSOC deals with education, and because it deals with education, it's technically not allowed to deal with the provincial education institutes. It's not allowed to. And I don't know if they've changed the rules at the provincial governments on education, but the provincial governments on education, they're not allowed to deliver federally approved programs. They're
Yeah,
just not.
because that's our constitution, right? The
Exactly.
Separation of powers.
Exactly. And
So,
that
which
was
is
first
part of the reason why we
recognized
need these independent education and training centers. 'Cause we're not restricted by their curriculum and the Constitution of Canada.
I don't know if you teach under the aegis of UNESCO that anybody in Canada will object to it. I am not aware of any action that has ever been taken either overtly or covertly against a UNESCO-driven education program. That's curious in itself, you know.
Well, that's something we
be-
can definitely try.
Well, you know what might be a good idea is for you to ask UNESCO for some interns that you can train.
Actually, the
Imagine-
UNESCO just did an event there. I believe they have an office in Ottawa.
Yeah, but they don't do anything. They print. They're a printing company. They print information that has been federally approved by the prime minister or president of the country. I think. I don't know if
I'm not
they
sure.
have any authorization from the ministers of education. It's something to find out, but I don't want to spend that time. I'm the interim UN resident coordinator, and I'm sticking by it until they fire me. And I don't mind if you get me fired.
All right, we'll do that.
Okay.
So let's finish up. This is just a 1-minute video that I'm going to play as a closing, just since we are approaching 2 minutes to 3.
Wow. Is it 3 or
Share
2?
my screen. It's 3 o'clock here now. Just sharing my screen.
Yeah,
Time.
it's 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
Wow.
we started at 1. Well, it was the correct one at least. So hopefully you now can see this gentleman. Only 1 minute. Oops.
Who's that?
Oops, no sound.
Dr. Stu Capstick.
Citizen involvement is essential for bringing about change. It is not separate from, it's not some sort of optional add-on. In fact, it has to be part of transformative climate action.
So that was your 1 minute little video that they had for today. So that's today's theme in Egypt at that COP meeting. It's on civil society. So it's a good fit, I think, for what we are also trying to do as well.
COP27 is just an antecedent to COP28. And between 27, 26, and 25, nothing has happened. They're just talking. It's a bloody shame. It is.
All right, so I think we will end now. It is exactly 3
Stephanie,
o'clock.
thank
All.
you. Hank, have a nice
Thank
day.
you. Thank you, everybody.